In this video, we're gonna look at what many historians consider to be the 8 best political decisions of the 20th century. You might agree with these choices, you might not. But before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe for more videos like this one. And now, the 8 best political decisions of the 20th century. Number 8, Iran, the Shah's U.S. visit. In the early 1950s, American officials were keen to improve relations with Iran, which had been steadily drifting closer to the Soviet Union since the end of World War II. Iranian officials were less enthusiastic but agreed that something needed to be done. And so in 1953, they invited Dwight Eisenhower to become the first American president to visit Iran. The relationship between Iran and the U.S. had always been complicated. While both countries shared democratic values and had close economic ties, the U.S. was seen by many in Iran as an instrument of British imperialism, a charge given credence by the fact that Iran had been part of the British Empire until 1935. Still, as the Cold War began to intensify, both countries recognized that they needed each other's help to counter Soviet influence in the region. Unfortunately, those good relations would only last a few years, as growing tensions over control of Iranian oil led to the Iranian Revolution of 1979, and the establishment of the Islamic Republic under Ayatollah. Still, it is hard to argue that closer relations between two key players in such a strategic region was unworth it. Number 7, the New Deal. When Franklin D. Roosevelt won the presidency in 1932, the U.S. was in the middle of the Great Depression, a period of economic hardship that had lasted almost 3 years and saw unemployment figures hit 25%. In order to combat the depression, Roosevelt introduced a series of programs and reforms known as the New Deal, which aimed to provide relief, recovery, and reform for the American people. Though controversial at the time, many of the New Deal's most important reforms are still in place today, including Social Security, which has quite literally saved the lives of millions of elderly Americans who rely on its monthly benefits. In addition, other policies such as government-sponsored home loans and the introduction of minimum wage laws have helped millions of Americans to access better housing and working conditions. No. 6. Germany, Chancellor Bismarck, and the creation of the Weimar Republic. After World War I, Germany found itself in a precarious position. Having lost the war, they had to contend with the economic, social and political fallout while trying to maintain stability in the face of growing extremism from both the left and the right. As German leaders struggled to find a way forward, they turned to Chancellor Bismarck, who had already proven himself to be a capable leader. With his guidance, a new constitution was drafted, and on August 11, 1919, the Weimar Republic was born. Despite its tumultuous start, the Weimar Republic proved to be remarkably resilient, surviving 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and the rise of Nazism. And it wasn't until 1945 that the Republic was finally replaced by the Federal Republic of Germany. Number 5. Ghana becomes first sub-Saharan African country to achieve independence. On March 6, 1957, the British formally recognized the independence of Ghana, marking a watershed moment in African history and inspiring other African nations to fight for their own freedom. Led by the charismatic Kwame Nkrumah, the Gold Coast, as Ghana was then known, had been a British colony since the 15th century. However, following World War II, the desire for independence grew, and after a series of protests and negotiations, the Gold Coast became the first sub-Saharan African nation to break free of colonial rule. This momentous occasion marked the beginning of a new era in Africa and inspired other African nations to follow suit. The French Revolution. When the French Revolution began in 1789, it quickly became one of the most important events in European history, overthrowing a centuries-old monarchy and redefining the role of the people in politics. For centuries, France had been ruled by an absolute monarchy, but growing discontent over the extravagance of the royal court, and the heavy burden of taxation led to widespread opposition. On July 14, 1789, a group of Parisians stormed the Bastille, a symbol of royal authority, and the revolution was underway. Over the next 10 years, the revolutionaries abolished feudalism, established a republic, and wrote a new constitution. Though the revolution would eventually be suppressed and Napoleon Bonaparte would eventually seize power, the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity would live on and inspire future generations of French and Europeans to fight for democracy. No. 3. The United Nations. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the international community was eager to find a way to prevent another global conflict. As such, they came together and created the United Nations, an organization whose stated purpose is to maintain international peace and security. Since its founding in 1945, the UN has worked to address a wide range of global issues, including promoting sustainable development, protecting human rights, and providing humanitarian aid. Although it has faced criticism for its bureaucracy and slow decision-making process, the UN has played an important role in resolving conflicts, improving living standards, and protecting vulnerable populations around the world. No. 2. Japan's adoption of the Maji Constitution. In 1868, Japan was a feudal society ruled by a handful of powerful families. However, with the arrival of Commodore Perry and the opening of Japan to the West, it became clear that Japan needed to modernize if it was to survive. That same year, a group of young reformers led a coup and established a new government under the leadership of Emperor Meiji. The reformers set about modernizing every aspect of Japanese life, including its military, industry, and education system. In 1889, the Maji Constitution was drafted, which established Japan as a constitutional monarchy. These reforms laid the foundation for Japan's rapid industrialization and its emergence as a major player on the world stage. The fall of the Berlin Wall. On November 9, 1989, the Berlin Wall, a symbol of the Cold War and the division of Europe, was opened, and soon after for nearly 3 decades, the wall had divided East and West Berlin, separating families and friends and preventing East Germans from fleeing to the West. However, with the weakening of communist governments around the world and growing calls for democracy in East Germany, it became clear that the wall could not stand. As crowds gathered at the wall, demanding passage, border guards were ordered to shoot on sight. But in the end, the order was disobeyed, and the wall was opened. The fall of the Berlin Wall marked a turning point in the Cold War and paved the way for the reunification of Germany and the end of the communist era in Europe. And that's our list of the 8 best political decisions of the 20th century. Do you agree with our choices? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.